Alright, good morning fourth graders. Today is Thursday, March 26th, and your lesson today is lesson 7-4, multiplying fractions by whole numbers. We're going to start the presentation here. Today in your math journal we're going to work together on page 238. So that's where I'm going to get right now is to 238 for you. Okay, so this is the page we should be on. Find that page. It says the Hillside Elementary School Walking Club. Let's see, maybe I can make it just a little bit bigger for us. All right. The Hillside Elementary School Walking Club meets every Monday after school. The table below shows how far some students walked at their last meeting. And here are students Katie, Mapara, Nikhil, Cole, Maria, and Jack. You can see how much they walked. 2/3 of a mile, 9/10, 1 1/4, 2 1/2, 4/3, and 5/6. Okay, so a couple things to notice about that is some of these are mixed numbers. Like Nikhil says he walked 1 1/4 mile, Cole 2 1/2. Maria and Jack have improper fractions. They walked 4/3 of a mile, so they walked more. Maria walked more than a mile, and so did Jack is 5/6, so his isn't an improper fraction. That's my fault. But we're going to be using these fractions to help us find out how far they walked during a certain amount of time. So I believe this is how much they walked every day. Yep. So Katie walks the same distance every meeting. Find out how far she will walk after 2 meetings. So we look back up at her chart. We have Katie. Katie walked 2/3 of a mile. And they want us to draw a picture. They want us to do a couple different things. They want us to draw a picture, write a multiplication equation. So let's start by drawing the picture. If this is day 1, Katie walked 2/3 of a mile. So that means we got to split this into thirds. A third is kind of like, we talked about, looks kind of like a peace sign, if you've ever seen something like that. If you haven't, that's how you make thirds. And she walked 2/3 of that. So that's 1 day. Okay? So that was the first week. Second week, we're going to need another circle. And make that same thing. But here's how I want you to think about as we're drawing this picture. If we were going to walk another 2/3, we could color in 2/3 here. We could do the same thing. But we still have 1/3 available here. If we're trying to figure out how much you walked total and we're just adding, we could just add. So this was 1/3 from week 1, 2/3 from week 1. So then from week 2, that could be your 1/3. This could be your second third. You guys see what I mean there? If we had filled them both in over here, we could just take the 1 and slide it over here. So that we're filling in the entire circle. And that's maybe an easier way to see it, because now, as you look at it, this circle right here is completely full. That's equal to 1 whole. Or in this case, 1 whole is the same as 1 mile. And this one has, there's 1, 2, 3 pieces, so that's your denominator. How many of the 3 pieces are filled in? 1. So 1/3 of a mile in this case. Does that make sense? Hopefully it makes sense. I guess you can't really answer me through the video, but if it doesn't, hit me up with an email or something, and I can maybe talk with you about it. So, if we were to do this as a multiplication equation, what we should hope to get is 1 1/3 miles. So let's try it. We've been doing multiplication, whole numbers, and fractions here for the last few days. Katie walks 2/3 of a mile, and I can see I'm going to need to calibrate my smartboard here in a minute. And, oof, that's terrible. 2/3 of a mile, and she does that 2 weeks. So, when it's a whole number, remember, we're not just going to write our whole number like that. We take our whole number and we're going to write it as a fraction, which would be 2/1. because that tells us what to multiply. We multiply numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator to get a new fraction. So go ahead and pause me, multiply your numerator, multiply your denominator, and once you have that, hit play, and then you can check your work, because I'll go through it with you. Go ahead and pause. Alright, so 2 times 2 is 3, 2, 1, 4. And 3 times 1, 3, 2, 1 is 3. So, a good answer would be 4 1/3 miles. But up here we got 1 1/3 miles. How can that be? They're two different things. Well, we've talked about this too the last few days. When you have an improper fraction, we need to try and switch it over to a mixed number, especially when there's a label. If there isn't a label, if it's just what's 2/3 times 2, you can leave it like that. But if there's a label like how many miles, then we want to change that back into a mixed number. And how do we do that? We do that by dividing. We go 4 divided by 3. If we do this right, we should end up with 1 1/3 miles. How many times does 3 go into 4? It's a multiplication problem. 3 times what gets you close to 4 without going over? And 3 times 1 is as close as you can get. 3 times 1 is 3, and subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1. When your remainder is smaller than your divisor, you are done. So in this, that's all there is. And if you look, here's your whole number, or your answer. It's a different number, or a different color. 1, here's your numerator, 1, denominator 3. 1 1/3. So 4/3 is the same as 1 1/3. I gotta erase this so I can move it up. So if you need this, go ahead and pause it or rewind it. Do whatever you gotta do to get that work down. So our answer, we already found, was 1 1/3 miles. They want to know between which two whole numbers does this answer lie. And we talked about that. If I had a number line, don't write this down there because this is for Jack. But if we had a number line, there's 0, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. We talked about we're trying to find where 1 1/3 would be for this answer. And it's bigger than 1 because it's got one whole. So it's bigger than 1, but it's not bigger than 2. It's 1 and then just part of another one, because it looks like this. We drew this up there. One whole filled in and 1/3. It's got one whole, but it doesn't have 2, so it's between 1 and 2. You're going to have to do that on the next one. Problem number 2. Jack walks the same distance after every meeting. Find out how far he will walk after 4 meetings. So let's go find what Jack does. Going back up to the top. Jack walks 5/6 of a mile. Okay, so we're going to draw a picture. So, to start with, I'm going to calibrate super fast. So I could tell we weren't calibrated very well before. I'll try to remember to do that before next time. Okay, so the first week he walks 5/6. How do you make 6? Well, one way you could do is to make thirds and then split them in half. But this is the way that I do it. I split it in half. And if there's the middle, I just try and make like a V. Kind of a sideways V like that. And he walks 5/6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6. That's week 1. Week 2, he's going to walk another 5/6. There's my little glitch in the smartboard. Alright, for week 2, I'm going to color with green here so you can see. Because this was all week 1. Week 2, he goes 1/6, 2.6, 3.6, 4.6, 5/6 of a mile. So right now, after 2 weeks, he's walked 1 whole mile and 1, 2, 3, 4/6 of a second mile. That's after only 2 weeks. How many meetings does he have? 4 meetings. So we got to keep going. This would be the 3rd one. We're going to need another one. I might run out of space. I maybe made them too big. For week 3, I'm going to use blue. 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6. Because each time he walks 5/6 of a mile. So basically it's 5/6 times 4. That's 3 weeks. At this point, he's walked 1 whole mile, 2 complete miles, and how much of this one? 1, 2, 3 out of 6. So right now we're at 2 3/6. We need to do 1 more week. This one's going to probably end up being a little smaller because I made mine just a little too big. And how many do we need to fill in for week 4? 5/6, right? But we're going to start where we left off. I'm going to use black this time. 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6. So when you look at this, how many full miles did he walk? That would be how many circles are completely filled in. 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 full miles. And how much of the 4th mile did he walk? How many total pieces are there in the hole? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many of the 6 are colored in? 2. So what we found out is that he walked 3 2/6 miles. But now let's check that with our multiplication equation. If you need more time to finish drawing this, because I might be working a little fast, it's kind of hard to know, go ahead and pause me, finish drawing this, and then unpause me when you're ready to do the multiplication. But I'm going to delete this and just erase it in just a minute, so go ahead and pause. Okay, so doing the multiplication equation. We know that he walks 5/6 of a mile each time. We're multiplying that by 4. And up top I just wrote it as a whole number. I wrote it as just 4. But you guys know that we don't just write it like that. We need to make it into a fraction because that makes it easier for us to multiply. We're going to do 4 over 1. And now we just multiply numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, and that should get us our fraction. So go ahead and pause me and do that, and then when you're ready to check your answer, hit play. Okay, we're back. 5 times 4. 3, 2, 1, that is 20. And 6 times 1 is 6. Now again, from up top, when we drew the picture, we know that it should be 3 2/6 miles. This is an improper fraction. We need to change that back into a mixed number. So we have a whole number and a fraction. How do you do that? You do it by dividing. 20 divided by 6. 20 divided by 6. And what you're doing is you're trying to figure out how many 6s you can count by without going over 20. Or 6 times something gets you close to 20 without going over. If you're not sure what to start with, first thing to think about is 10. 6 times 10 is 60, too much. If 10 doesn't work, go down to 5. That's a pretty easy one too. 6 times 5 is 30, still too much. Some of you maybe know what you can do. What I would go to if I wasn't sure is I'd try 2. 6 times 2 is 12, and subtract. And now what you're doing is you're doing 20 minus 12. That's going to become a 10. Instead of a 20, that's going to become 10. 10 minus 2 is 8, and 1 minus 1 is 0. You can put the 0 if you want. You don't have to. I don't put it there. I think it just, from my brain, I don't like having it. Now I'm thinking, how many 6s can go into 8 without going over? And that would be one more 6. Because as long as your remainder is bigger than your divisor, then you can keep going. When your divisor is smaller than your, or excuse me, when your remainder is smaller than your divisor, you're done. 6 times 1 is 6, and we subtract. 8 minus 6 is 2. Now our divisor is smaller than our remainder, we're done. If we did this right, we should end up with the same answer as we did when we drew. Whole number is, we add these, 2 plus 1 is 3. Your numerator is 2, and your denominator is 6. So your answer should be 3 and 2, 6. Now I'd like you to try on your own is to figure out between which two whole numbers 3 and 2, 6 lies. So figure out what these two blanks are, hit pause, and when you're ready, when you think you have it, go ahead and hit play again, and then I'll go over it with you. Okay, so if you're thinking about this, we have 3 wholes. That means that it's bigger than 3. It's 3, and if you remember when we drew our circle, we had 3 holes all filled in. And I could do this slower, but then we also had 2 6 filled in. So it's bigger than 3, but it's not quite 4. And that's what you should have had for this one. That's a real quick lesson for you. Your math boxes today are page 237. So I'm going to delete this and I'm going to go over them just real fast with you on this video so that you know what I'm expecting. And then, let's go to math boxes. It's probably easier if I do the print version because then it'll look like yours. Alright, box 1. Maybe I can even make them just a tish bigger. There we go. So they want to find the measure of t. What we know is that angle AB is a straight angle. So because it's a straight angle, we should know what that measures. So this plus this should equal this whole thing. So with your unknown, t is your unknown, t plus 130 should get you whatever a straight angle is. I don't want to tell you what that is today because you need to try and recall that. Looking at box 2, use a picture or a number model to show how you solve this problem. This is exactly what we were working on the other day. It's kind of what we were working on today. 3/4 cup of buttermilk to make 1 batch. How much to make 3? So it's multiplying a fraction by a whole number. And then telling me between which two numbers that answer lies between. It's exactly like what we were doing today. Just with different numbers in a different scenario. Carol ate 5/6 of her granola bar before lunch. Which of the following shows how much she has left for later? You have to think about what a whole would be if we were working with 6. We just worked on that on page 238 together. So figure out what would be left. There is, it could be all of them, or else it could be none of them. So if it's more than one, just thinking out loud, like logically, if it's this one and this one, then this one's probably also an answer because it's got to be all of the above. But if none of them work, then it's none of the above. This one, you're not going to be able to draw me the angle again unless you have a protractor, but you can tell me if LMN is acute or obtuse. It's 120 degrees. 120 degrees, is that obtuse or acute? Here, partial products division. Again, if you were doing this, just extend your line. And what you should be thinking is, can 6 go into 8? And how many times? Just work with that 8 initially. How many times can 6 go into 8? Then add your zeros, depending on that. We'll go over that a little bit more tomorrow. And box 6. Ariel read 1/10 of her book on Monday, 3/10 on Tuesday, 1/10 on Wednesday, 2/10 on Thursday, and 2/10 on Friday. How much has she read? That's just adding fractions. And I know you guys can do that. Write me a number model, this time just with the answer. So, and I'll have that, I'll shoot that video later today so I can post it right away when I get in tomorrow morning. Alright, take care, and we'll talk to you again soon.